All right, so working on the tracker still, and trying to figure out what my fuel problem is. I've kind of ruled out timing and asked the internet the other day, and they said, why don't you try starting fluid to see if it'll run? I should have thought of that, but it was a great idea, so I squirted some starting fluid down the tube, and she fired right up, no problem. So it's not a timing problem, it's not a spark problem, it's not a compression problem, it's a fuel problem. And so I was looking at my wiring diagram, checking connections and stuff, and I figured I'd better check the wires that go back to the fuel pump, because why not? And in doing so, I found the wire harness, and I found a lovely surprise from the previous owners. What happened here is that someone cut the wire harness in two or something, and they went back through with a mountain of yellow wire and spliced them back together. I'm gonna go through it and see if I can figure it out. All right, so we went through the wiring and the rat's nest on the floor in here, and the one wire that goes to the fuel pump, I repaired that wire, and that didn't make any difference. The fuel, I'm still getting 12 volts to the back, fuel pump's still running, it's still pushing fuel up to the front. As you can tell, I still have a lot of work to do to repair all of these wires. The one I did is right here. I did a nice job with the solder and the dielectric grease and the shrink wrap. That's not the problem. That's not why it's not starting. Those wires there, although they look like a rat's nest, they look terrible. I gotta fix them. That's not my issue. What else I did is I came up to the front of the engine and I was playing with a couple different things up here on the front. I was looking at my fuel return line to the tank. If I'm getting fuel at my return, that means I'm getting fuel at the front. And so I took the fuel pressure regulator off, and I had a little bit of fuel there just to check to see if that was an issue. I swapped it out. I pulled the one off my dad's tracker and swapped it in onto this one just to check the part, and it made no difference. I still had fuel at my return line there. So there's a couple things that I could be going wrong. There's a vacuum reference on the one side of the fuel pressure regulator. I needed to check that, see if I'm getting enough vacuum there, make sure there's no plugs in that line. And the next thing I've got to check on is my injector, but it's pretty late. I am done for the night. All right, I just finished soldering up all the wires under the hood. I figured I'd give you a little bit of an update. So I broke off all these, all their patches here. I took all those out of it, and I put the wires back together, and I soldered them, and then I put shrink tubing over the top. So I'll show you here. So as you can see here, I've got each one of the wires is individually soldered. So I pulled them all apart and soldered them all together. And then I had a little pair of vice grips here to help hold it up out of the firewall so I'm not fighting it as it falls down inside. And yeah, I got a bit of mess of tools over here, but I think that looks a lot better than what was in there before. So hopefully we won't have any wire gremlins in the future. I only had 2 wires crossed in that whole mess. I had a red one with blue dots on it, and a red one with blue dots and a black stripe, and those 2 wires were crossed. So I don't know what they went to, but we'll figure it out. And we got them right this time, so it looks good. All right, I got them all taped back up. I'm gonna tuck them right back down there in the hole and get the cap over the top of it. That is that's a lot nicer than it looked before. I'm kind of excited about that. So no more wire gremlins there. Okay, so we're back to working on the tracker again. This video's been filmed over several days. So I went through a little more testing on it. I tested the injector, and in doing so, I pulled the fuel line off, and I noticed I wasn't getting any fuel up to here. So most people would say, well, why didn't you check the fuel pump first? I did check the fuel pump first. And when I put 12 volts to it, directly put 12 volts to it, it ran. I had no issues with it. But then the other day when I was trying to get it to go, trying to fix it, I didn't have any fuel up to the front and I was cranking, I wasn't getting any fuel. I checked to make sure I was getting 12 volts at the back. So the computer is sending voltage to the back to the fuel pump, but I wasn't getting any fuel. So I put 12 volts to the fuel pump and it didn't run. So the first thing I did check is I put 12 volts on the fuel pump and it ran just fine. And then I did it again and it won't run. So tonight, bought a new fuel pump. We're gonna drop the tank and put a fuel pump in it and hopefully get this thing running again. Let me show you here what it all is involved with pulling a fuel pump. So I have one of these two is a return line. One is a vent line that goes up to the vent canister in the front. I have a vent here for when I fill it with gas. I have a fuel filler neck here that comes up through, and you unbolt it here. And then I've got my main gas line, which is this one right here. I've got to disconnect that from the fuel filter. And then I've got 4 bolts right here. There's one here and there's one in each corner. So I disconnect all that and then I drop it right out. Did I mention that fuel pump problems only happen when with a full tank of gas? Yeah, I just filled this up with gas, so it'll be fun. I'll be all right. I got jack, I'll just let it down real slow. And then this has a check valve in the filler neck, so I actually can't, so I can't siphon the gas out of it. So we'll just drop it down, we'll pump the gas. I got a little pump, we'll pump all the gas out of it and transfer it to another vehicle. And we'll, let's get working, let's get it done. All right, be that way. All right, time to drop the tank. All right, we got the tank on the ground. You can tell I play in the dirt a little bit with this one, but tank's on the ground. Let's get these wires unhooked and we'll get that pump replaced. All right, so we just got the tank dropped. Notice something very interesting here. Not sure how this happened. I'll grab my light so you can see this better. See that? That hose right there? That's got a massive hole in it. That's not supposed to have a hole in it. Look at that. That looks like I've had some squirrels or some mice in here chewing holes in my gas lines. Yeah, look at that. That ain't good. Sorry, that's the vent that goes up to the front of the car to the vacuum canister. It's interesting. So I'll have to get that piece of hose replaced. That explains why when I changed the filter before, I had a lot of dirt in my filter. And if I'm getting that much sand in my fuel tank, that would explain why my fuel pump is shot too. I hate mice. They destroy everything. But that's all right. We'll get this all vacuumed out and pull the old pump, and we'll get her redone. Here we go. So there's my pre-filter. Completely falling apart. This is all coated in varnish from letting it set for a few years. Yeah, I think between that mouse chewing a hole in that wire right in that thing right there and that pre-filter being completely disintegrated, I think that's probably what made our fuel pump go out. We'll put the new one on it and make this thing run again. Yeah, that needs replaced. There's a size difference between those two. Look at that. There's a significant size difference. New wire harness there. plug into there. Yep. Now we've got to old pump here. I had a ground wire that came to the back here. And a positive wire that went to that terminal right up there. So we're gonna see if we got a couple terminals like this. We'll crimp them on there. I'm not fond of these. Really not fond of these, as you know, from underneath the hood of my car recently. And get that wiring done, we'll have a fuel pump. All right, got a fuel pump ready to go back in the tank. We've got the gas tank pumped down. We got almost all the gas out of it. And now I'm gonna finish getting the rest of the gas out of it, then we take the vacuum and vacuum all the crud out of the bottom of this. I'll show you the crud in the bottom of it here in a second. There's a bunch of varnish, a bunch of stuff in the bottom of it, a bunch of sand from where the mice chewed a hole through that rubber line. Yeah, a lot of fun stuff. So we'll get this all cleaned out and get going. So we got all the gas out of it. I'll show you what we're dealing with here, what's in the bottom of this tank. See all that there? And if you look, I got a bunch over there in that corner I gotta get out. And then there's a bunch over there. There's a bunch over there. I'll get all that stuff. I gotta get out. I got most of the gas out of it. So that's what I'm dealing with. I'll take the vacuum and see what I can do to vacuum it out of there. So this will be fun. Okay, so we got all the gas out of the tank, and now we're going to vacuum all the gunk out of it. So I let it sit for a couple days, make sure all the excess gas would evaporate off. And now the tank is nice and dry. We're gonna grab the vacuum and suck all that crap out of the bottom of it. Here, I'll show you. All that junk there on the bottom there. All that. Over here on the other side. All that gunk in the bottom. So we're gonna grab the vacuum and pull all that off the bottom. Get her cleaned up. And then we can put the fuel pump back in it. That is as clean as the tank's gonna get. So got almost all the gunk out of the bottom of it, everything I could get out of it. Any loose stuff has been picked up, and I scraped off the big chunks, and it's pretty clean. Looks pretty good. So time to put the fuel pump back on. Bet you thought I was going to use the rattle wrench to tighten these up. Nope. Tighten them by hand. Mostly because I don't want to strip them out. Pump is in. Fuel line is replaced that the rats chewed a hole in. And I think we're ready to put the tank back in there. I route my line here. Back over through there, like it was before. Down, down. Fly line off the pump. And I'm gonna clean up our tools here so we can actually get back underneath this thing and slip a tank back in there. See that? That's what I just swept up off the floor, off that fuel tank and all up underneath there. Weight loss. All right, tank is in. Time to hook all the hoses up and see if this pig will run. All right, so we got the fuel in it. Now we're gonna put the tires on it, get the back on the ground because I only have about 2 gallons of gas. And I know the pickup is at the back of this tank. And my little helper is, she's running the tires on, one of the tires on for me. Go to the next one. All right, moment of truth, here we go. Clutch is in. She runs, she runs. See that? She runs, that's a good day. That's a good thing. So we'll have to take her out for a test drive. I'll check underneath, make sure there's no gas leaking out of where my fuel filter ties on, and get everything buttoned up, and maybe I'll drive her to work tomorrow. No, I need more gas before I do that. Yeah, it runs. Good day. So we got it running. Tracker starts, fires up. I got a couple other things, little things to button up. I gotta get a couple more gallons of gas so I don't run out of gas on my way to the gas station. But other than that, she's running. She'll be back on the road. Probably drive her to work. I'll drive her after work tomorrow. Get a good test drive in her. And yeah, that's exciting. So there's part 2 of 2, trying to get the tracker running. It's a really frustrating to try to troubleshoot things sometimes. I checked the fuel pump, first thing I checked. Fuel filter, I changed the fuel filter. There was a lot of gunk in it. I'll throw a picture in right here of what was in the fuel pump. Yeah, so what you saw there was what was in the fuel filter. It was pretty gross, and so I thought that might have been what my problem was. So I changed the fuel filter. Funnily enough, I took it for a test drive after that, drove it around the block. I was thinking, life is good, I got it fixed. I pulled it up into the driveway and it wouldn't start again. And I've had to pull a little bit of redneck deal and push the button on for the clutch to pretend like the clutch was down and crank the motor over, and basically drove it in the garage with the starter. But hey, had to go about 10 feet to get it up into the garage. So, and then I started digging into it from there, and it was just intermittent. It was funny because I went down, when it died on me, it was died on the side of the road. We were going out to go wheeling, and my wife had to come pick me up. It fired right up and drove right onto the trailer, no problem. So it was a little aggravating, a little frustrating, but, and then fuel pump tested fine, and then it wouldn't test fine, and everything else. So a lot of merry-go-round for a fuel pump. Dirty bugger. Funny thing is, after I pulled it off and went through it, you can hit it on the battery, hook the 2 leads to the battery, and it won't do anything, and then you bump it and it'll run. And so if you give it just the right jar, it'll start running, and then it'll quit, and then it'll run, and it'll quit. So I'm thinking it's just full of sand, full of gunk, because there was no pre-filter on it when I pulled it out of the tank. I mean, the remnants of a pre-filter were there, but it had all been disintegrated by all the gas. But there you go. So interesting, long troubleshooting process. The aggravating thing is it's been off the road for about 2 months, about a month and a half, really, between sending my ECU out to get rebuilt and basically waiting for that, and then waiting for parts for the fuel pump and other things to get it running. So thanks for watching. More fun videos coming. I got a lot more to go on my dad's tracker. I got some cool things upcoming. So some little bit of different design projects that are not car related. It'll be fun. Thanks for watching.